Are the rapidly digitizing industries and geopolitical tensions making the Middle East a prime target for cyber threats? What are the crucial measures to prevent cybercrimes and safeguard the digital landscapes? How are China and Russia shaping the cyber conflict in the Middle East and what it means for regional security? I'm Nakhavali, and this is Analitika. Gopika, thank you very much for joining the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
In simple words, how cyber attack can take place and what are the techniques?
So cyber attacks can happen through, the simplest one is probably a phishing email or a phishing link. So even in Dubai currently as well, you get messages from Emirates Post or some specific delivery agent saying, click on this link. And generally since we keep ordering online, we will always have some order which is in delivery. So it's very common for us to feel like, this is a legit link. And once you click it, probably they take money from you. And this is not only in the form of text messages, you get in form of mails. Sometimes the employees are not aware enough. So that is the most simplest way a cyber attack can happen. But there are other ways as well where a software, you find a vulnerability, which is an issue in the software, and the attacker hacks through it. It could also be through social engineering. That's basically like snooping, or you can say stalking a person, getting to know their whole lifestyle and figuring out their password or something through that. And then malware and all worms that you generally have, even that is possible.
Right. Let me ask you about the influence of cyber attack on geopolitics, especially in the Middle East region. We remember what happened in 2017 when the Qatari news agency was hacked, and then there was some information which was revealed indicating that the Emir of Qatar in some way supporting Iranian activities in the region and also supporting Hezbollah and Hamas. In response, we remember that the Gulf Cooperation countries also together with Egypt and other countries decided to put boycott against Qatar. So what do you think about this issue, how cyber attack can actually influence the geopolitics in the region?
The geopolitics, basically cyber attacks, they can cause a lot of chaos when an attack happens. So as you said, when you spoke about Qatar. So it causes, main thing it causes, a destabilization of relationships. So the trust and cooperation between each nation will disappear. So now when there's a hack, like if for Qatar it happened of the Qatar news agency, now automatically the other GCC countries are going to be wary of Qatar because of the leak. So that means there was an issue in their system for them to get leaked, for the information to get leaked. At the same time, it was supposed to be confidential information. So that is one. And the other one is the economic impact as well, because when cyber attacks, they disrupt any a big organization. In this case, it was a news agency. So when it's a very critical infrastructure, automatically everyone feels like, are the systems secure enough or not? So that also causes with the decline in the economic stability. Then the political manipulation as well. So right now we learned that the Qatar ministers' confidential information came out. So now automatically there's going to be people taking sides and people going away the same way how the whole GCC had abandoned Qatar for some time. Then there's national security concerns, obviously, because if you're able to get files that are not supposed to be accessed by the public, that means that it's classified information, and it can undermine the defenses of the country as well. Then there's escalation of conflict. So cyber attacks, it doesn't have to happen only by a specific one hacker. It could also happen through a state that is, they're hacktivists. They are like sponsored by a state just to cause political issues. So that also, it could escalate the issues that are currently happening. So given all this, it's very essential that uh, we protect our system so it doesn't in any way give such information and cause like the country itself to go down.
Right, right. Uh, when I was preparing for this episode, I went through some of the research and survey, and I saw one survey from PwC from 2016, which shows that 56% of Middle Eastern business suffered losses of more than 500,000 as a consequence of cyber attack, compared to 33% internationally. The research clearly shows that, in addition to the topic's relatively novelty, the Middle Eastern countries appear to have a different risk appetite than other areas in relation to cybersecurity. Why is that so?
Okay, so first of all, I did check about the study as well. And there is an updated study now for 2021, where 2022 actually, the Digital Trust Insights 2022, the same by PwC as well. It showed that 58% of Middle East organizations predict a rise in the cyber spending in 2022. They have realized that, so generally, in the whole olden or conventional norm, you don't require, you have this thing that you don't require cybersecurity. You just keep everything in a paper and a bundle and all that. But currently, with the cyber attacks rising, everyone has understood the need for cybersecurity. And there's like a rapid digital transformation happening in Dubai and Middle East. It's completely always evolving. There's always digital transformation happening. So it's very essential that we make sure that technology is protected and that it's not going into the wrong hands. Then there's also geopolitical tensions, as we already mentioned before in the previous question. So it is very essential that we make sure that it's all protected. Then there's also in UAE, there's rich targets because there's so many number of industries and companies which have their branches here, and it's a very widespreading when it comes to development. So it's very so as rich targets, obviously there is a higher risk appetite as well. Because anytime a hacker gets information, they're getting information to a lot of data, which could potentially harm a whole organization and its branches over the world. Then there's also the awareness and preparedness. I think as any company should always have a security training for all their employees, make sure that a cyber attack can never happen internally through the employees. Because one thing that even I have learned in my master's is the main reason for a cyber attack, or the most common reason, is human error. So we tend to think something is legit, or a link was legitimate, and that is where the whole problem starts. Sometimes we're just unaware, we do not know we are not supposed to have this specific setting on. But so that also is very essential, and all of this is what requires to be done.
Right. You talked about the protection of infrastructure. We know that Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates are set out to create smart cities all over the country. Qatar is working toward a smart infrastructure as well. Dubai is planning to have all its transaction on blockchain, and we know that many other Gulf cooperation countries are investing in Internet of Things. But in the same time, smart infrastructure and provide an excellent target not only for hostile states but also for small-scale cyber criminality. So in your opinion, what measures should these countries take to prevent cybercrime?
First of all, they should make sure that cyber security policies and regulations for each and every technology they're implementing. It is highly essential that each technology goes through IT audits and make sure that it is all up to date. The softwares are updated and patched. It's also essential that when it's such a huge technology with the government, there should be a public and private collaboration, because private companies who are completely into cybersecurity can really help them to speed up the process, and joint efforts will help to identify vulnerabilities, develop the practices, and overall cybersecurity resilience. It's also essential secure. We have this technique which is called secure by design. So you don't put cybersecurity after the whole software is already developed. You started from the basic coding. You make sure, okay, is the code secure? Can someone enter through the to an insecure code? So it's very essential we start from the base when we are implementing cybersecurity in it. And there's also network segmentation and access controls. So generally in any company as well, when there is something which is critical system, they are supposed to be kept completely away from the normal network. There should be no connection whatsoever. There should be segmented. So it's essential that these also are done the same way. And IoT generally has is not very secure in itself, because if you have these IoT devices at home, these smart home devices which help you to switch on your light and everything, but they have a lot of access to unnecessary information. So you need to figure out if those permissions are required or not. Then there's also the employee training and awareness that I mentioned before, where it's very essential that all the employees in the specific company should know about it. Continuous monitoring and incident response. So that is where you have security operations center, which has a 24/7 monitoring about if there's anything suspicious activity happening after office hours about that on the software. And there's also public awareness and engagement. Make sure that the public knows about the potential cyber threats that could happen through the app and how it can be avoided. Then international collaboration as well, not only through public and private sectors, but if you internationally collaborate, you can also have more development. At the same time, you will have more up to date with the technology that's happening in other countries.
Right. Let me ask you something which is actually very interesting for myself. We know that many countries in the Middle East are investing in offensive cyber capabilities and also use their cyber tools to spy on critics of the government and to deny access to information, especially after the Arab Spring and the Green Movement in Iran in 2009. We know that some countries, namely Iran, is trying to develop the intranet infrastructure. So, well, in your opinion, what obstacles stand in the way of intranet becoming operational, and how is that possible? And on the other side, we know that the satellite internet is also on progress. So how do you think that the satellite internet counteract authoritarian regimes' attempt to develop intranet?
So, intranet is generally known as national or sovereign internet itself. One of the main issues with intranet is its technical complexity. So, when you're building an intranet, you obviously have to establish a parallel network architecture, creating content filtering system, ensuring there's reliable connectivity within that closed network. So it's completely away from your normal network. So that itself is a little complex than your general network connections. And there's economic implications, like the cost of developing and maintaining a separate intranet infrastructure can be very substantial. It requires specific budgets and resources. Then there's also the limited access to global information and resources. Automatically, when you have an internet, you are restricting it to only the internet information. So we don't know how far we can make it. It could hinder the knowledge that you can get from globally accessing the internet. Then there's also the technical and security challenges, because maintaining a closed intranet environment brings constant monitoring and updates to address the vulnerabilities and potential cyber attacks. A closed system may also lead to a false sense of security, but once a person gets access to that closed network, they have access to everything in the network. Satellite internet, on the other hand, can offer control and restrict access to information as well. The advantage of a satellite internet is global connectivity. It can provide connectivity to regions and areas where infrastructure is lacking or restricted as well. So we can utilize that to access the global internet. Then there's censorship resistance. Satellite internets can enable individuals to access information without relying on local internet service providers, making it challenging for the authorities to censor or filter any content. There is redundancy and resilience. Satellite internet can offer redundancy because it is and resilience to the places which are prone to internet shutdowns and disruptions. So mostly, as when it's a satellite internet, it doesn't go down that often as when it's an intranet. Then obviously you have privacy and anonymity. Satellite internet connections can provide a high, like a certain level, which is difficult for authorities to monitor and surveillance online activities. However, satellite internet may have limitations as well because they are higher cost, limited bandwidth, and potential latency issues. So you have to consider all that as well.
Right, right. Um, Let me ask you about the capability of Middle Eastern countries in cyber activities. We know that in comparison to other Middle Eastern countries, Israel and United Arab Emirates show by far the most holistic approach when it comes to cybersecurity. In your opinion, which Middle Eastern countries have shown the most capabilities in cyber domain?
There are a couple of countries in the Middle East which have shown pretty good cyber security capabilities. First, as you mentioned, Israel, it is widely regarded as a global leader for cybersecurity. So the country is well-established ecosystem for cybersecurity innovation, research, development. UAE has a significant progress in developing in cybersecurity capabilities as well. It has implemented very like recently they've implemented a lot of initiatives to enhance the cybersecurity posture and protect all critical information. Um, Saudi Arabia has shown increasingly interest and investment in cybersecurity. They have taken steps to develop the cybersecurity defense, establish cybersecurity centers, and enhance the legal framework of cybersecurity itself. Qatar has notable strides towards cybersecurity capabilities, and it was the drive to need to protect their critical infrastructure happened due to the major events that happened, like the FIFA World Cup in 2022. Iran is also recognized to have good cyber capabilities, especially in the realm of offensive cyber operations. Um, the country is associated with state-sponsored cyber attacks and has reportedly developed advanced hacking tools and techniques.
All right. Okay. Let me ask you about the non-state actors. We know that for many non-state actors, the cyber domain presents new way for achieving old ends, such as obtaining resources. For example, we know that the Houthis in Yemen could successfully mine the cryptocurrency. Also, we know that the role of Islamic State and the Muslim Brotherhood in funding and organizing their activities through cyberspace is still active and visible. So, what non-state actors of the Middle East are the most influential on the cyberspace now, and how possible is that is the return of extremist or terrorist organization like ISIS through cyberspace?
Okay. So one of the most influential ones, as already mentioned, would be an hacktivist group, because such as Anonymous and other hacktivist collectives that you've probably seen, they carry out cybersecurity attacks and activities in Middle East. While their influence may not be focused to a specific region, they have targeted governments, organizations, individuals in Middle East as well. Then the Houthi rebels, they were in Yemen, and they show some level of cyber capability and engagement. Uh, they engage in large-scale cryptocurrency mining to increase their revenues, while their overall influence in the cyber domain is not very extensive as the other actors, but they do highlight evolving strategies to adopt by non-state actors to generate resources. Regarding the return of terrorist group like ISIS to cyberspace, it's important that we consider a couple of factors like cyber capabilities. Terrorist organizations, including ISIS, have demonstrated various degrees of cybersecurity capabilities. They use social media platforms for recruitment, propaganda dissemination, fundraising, and communication. While some of the capabilities have been disrupted, it's possible for these organizations to regroup and rebuild their capabilities over time. Online radicalization and recruitment, cyberspace provides an avenue for terrorist organizations to recruit individuals globally. The internet allows them to uh, promote their extremist propaganda, exploit vulnerabilities in online platforms, and target individuals. Countering online radicalism remains a significant challenge for governments and tech companies. Then there's cyber enabled attacks. Terrorist organizations may also attempt to conduct the attacks like hacking, data breaches, disruptive operations. These attacks can target critical infrastructure, government systems, private organizations, aiming to cause disruption, economical damage, and sometimes even just spread fear. Governments and cyber agencies around the world are working towards countering the terrorist attacks. Efforts are put to include monitoring online activities, collaborating with tech companies to remove extremist content. Uh, but there's only so much you just have to remain vigilant the whole time. So
Right. Let me ask you about the superpowers' role in this regard. We know that China and Russia are helping Iran to develop its capabilities in regard to cyber capabilities. So, in your opinion, how are China and Russia shaping the landscape of cyber conflict in the Middle East? And on the other side, what level of involvement should the US government have in cyber conflicts happening in the Middle East region?
China has been involved in enhancing Iran's cyber capabilities. Reports also suggest that Chinese companies have been providing technical support, training, and infrastructure to Iran's cyber operations. This assistance has likely contributed to development in Iran's operations. Russia has been involved in assisting Iran in enhancing as well. There were reports of collaborations between Russian and Iranian actors in cyber operations. Russia's advanced expertise in cyber warfare and their knowledge make them have a very good bond, close ties with Iran. Furthermore, both Russia and China have provided cyber support to Middle East, including Persian Gulf states. Their involvement, it will range from probably providing technology and infrastructure support all the way to offering training and expertise. Uh, their collaboration aims to strengthen the cyber capabilities of their countries for various purposes, including defense, intelligence gathering, regional influence. Regarding the involvement of level of involvement of the US government should have in cyber conflicts happening in the Middle East, it's a complex matter that requires careful consideration. Some key points that could consider include international cooperation. The US government should prioritize fostering international cooperation in cybersecurity in the Middle East countries. Collaborative efforts can include sharing threat intelligence, conducting joint exercises, providing technical assistance to strengthen the cybersecurity capabilities of the partner nation. There's also protection of the critical infrastructure. Given that the importance of Middle East in terms of energy security and global trade, the US has vested interest in developing Gulf states to protect their critical infrastructure. The US government can support capacity building initiatives, provide expertise, and assist in developing the measures as well. Then promoting cyber norms, the US should continue to advocate for responsible behavior in cyberspace and promote international norms and agreements. Encouraging countries to abide by these agreed principles can help mitigate any conflicts and geopolitical issues in the future. Addressing threats from state and non state actors. So, the US government should address the threats which are happening from both. This includes countering cyber espionage, state sponsored attacks, and terrorist organization cyber attacks. Um, Respect for sovereignty and human rights, involvement of cyber conflict should align with the principles of sovereignty and human rights. The US government should ensure that its actions are conducted within legal framework, respecting the sovereignty of the nations and privacy and the right of individuals.
Gopika, thank you very much for joining the program, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for watching and listening to us. Please don't forget to subscribe.